Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts. It's been a little while since we had a recording of this type, but for you audio listeners out there, you may recognize another voice that's on this podcast.
Hi. How's it going?
Welcome back, wife.
Hi, husband.
It's been a little while since you were on one of these recordings. It's actually probably been a couple years now.
Yeah, it's been at least a year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a while, but...
People probably thought you, chopped me up and hit me in the walls. Whole Edgar Allan Poe thing.
Yeah, that's obviously the first thing that would go across people's minds as to why you would be absent on the podcast.
I'm assuming. It's a thing.
Is it, though?
The whole telltale hearting it's a thing. It could happen. I don't know.
Is it, though?
I don't watch enough true crime to really be sure, but I think it's a thing.
Well, either way, we are going to be discussing something that is rather violent. So I guess that kind of set the mood to some extent, as weird as that may sound.
That's what I was going for.
Was it though?
I'm going to stick by that.
Sure. So we're here tonight to discuss something that is near and dear to my heart, but probably not as near and dear to yours, wife. And that is...
No, not even a little bit.
The Mortal Kombat movie, Mortal Kombat 2021. Now, you'll notice I have what I guess is an old movie poster up on screen at the moment because it still says the April 16 date instead of April 23rd when it actually hit, well, for us, HBO Max, because I'm not setting foot in a theater. Let's put it that way.
No, not there yet. Not mentally there yet.
Now, let's be real. I wouldn't have set foot in a theater to begin with, so it doesn't really matter. But there were other...
Gives you all the excuses to not be social.
Yeah, there are other excuses this time, as, everybody's well aware how the world is working at the moment. But movie did come out. I was able to watch it on HBO Max. I actually saw it twice prior to this recording. Wife, you saw it once with me. And you were relatively enthusiastic about seeing it. Before we dive too far into it, how enthusiastic were you really? Did you actually want to see this or what?
No, I was making you happy.
You didn't have to see it. I didn't drag you into it.
Well, we should give... So, husband plays all the Mortal Kombat video games. I am the type of person that sees a speck of blood in real life and starts to feel woozy and potentially pass out. So the first time when we were dating, when I don't even remember what Mortal Kombat came out, and I saw the first fatality with the bone shots, I left the room and I'm pretty sure I got in the car and drove away for a little while.
I could see how Mortal Kombat could have that effect on you. I mean, there was this little thing that happened in the 90s around when it was released. It was kind of a big deal where people were actively losing their minds and what the future was going to hold for we must save the children.
Yeah. So I don't do violence generally at all. I don't do gore. I don't do gore really. And this just hits all those points for me. Mostly broken bones are my thing that I can't handle. So I found out that this Mortal Kombat movie was going to be happening because the second it was announced, husband comes running into the room all like a little puppy dog, so excited.
Something like that.
Yeah, that is exactly what happened. And shows me this sneak preview trailer, and I was, a little bit terrified of what the future would bring. But then this April came around, and I was feeling tough.
How tough were you?
I was, hey, I only hid my head twice.
Every time something happened? Or even possibly was going to happen?
No, 2 or 3 times.
I think I would venture to guess it was a little bit more than that, but that's not the important part.
I was brave. So I sat down with husband. On his second viewing, he had to screen it first to make sure I could pretend to handle it.
I'm pretty sure I told you that you would not be able to handle it, and you decided to brave it anyway.
Yeah, because that pissed me off. I had to prove you wrong.
I may or may not know how to influence your decision making after all these years. Maybe, just a little bit.
So then we sat down and we watched the Mortal Kombat movie, and now here I am talking about the Mortal Kombat movie. So I enjoyed it.
It's been a while since we did a quote-unquote off-topic discussion, which at this point there isn't really a topic. So is it off-topic? I don't know.
I mean, it's a chat. Let's
it's a chat, we'll say. So We do have some of our real life friends that kind of listen to some of our other podcasts and would always just, grin and nod figuratively because obviously, they were listening to it across the country or something. But we'll see if they find this particular one, since it's more general media related, I guess, since they could hypothetically go watch this. See if they find it more entertaining, and hopefully everybody out there does as well. But now that we have the background, me being the Mortal Kombat fan, I've been playing it since Mortal Kombat 1. I distinctly have, there are core memories of my youth all the way through that I can recall distinct moments where Mortal Kombat was a part of my life. I distinctly remember certain days where certain things happened, and it was like I went home and played Mortal Kombat, or I was doing this and then something with Mortal Kombat happened. As compared to you, wife, who, I'm sure you knew of it before we met.
So I thought Tekken was the same thing as Mortal Kombat for a very, 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 very long time. Probably 2 or 3 years into dating you.
Technically, they're the same genre.
Yeah. And so you're talking about Mortal Kombat, and in my head, I was always like, oh yeah, with the wood chick that punches people, because that was always the character that I played. So
to be fair, the living wood is a level, so I could see the confusion.
Yeah, it's totally not the reason why, but I'll take it.
I know.
So yeah, I'm learning. It's been a learning curve for the past years that we've been together.
Well, so let's get into it. Coming in, obviously, you weren't watching the trailers. You weren't, scoping out what all the news and the drama, because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the movie got delayed a little bit, and people were questioning who is this new guy, and we'll talk about that later. I'll be honest, as wife mentioned earlier, I'm just not a movie person. I'm not a TV person. I don't sit and watch stuff. I'm doing things. Whether it's, I'm making something, I'm doing stuff with all the toys that I collect, I'm playing video games such as Mortal Kombat. Even when I'm watching Twitch streams, I'm usually doing something else, not just solely watching the stream. So it's very rare for me to sit down for a movie, and I was very excited for this one. As wife outlined, I'm a big fan. One of the core memories that I mentioned earlier was going to see the 95 movie, which will come up as part of this. And I went in very excited, which is often a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
Going in excited to anything, it's just asking for the worst to happen. Because no matter what, often no matter how many times you try, it'll just flat out not live up to your expectations because you're so built up for it. Now, I can confidently say, and I'm going to pitch it to you in a second, White, but I can confidently say that I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this movie. The too long didn't listen, I guess, is I would recommend this movie to watch for people. It was a lot of fun. As soon as I finished the first viewing, I wanted to watch it again. And then after the second viewing, I wanted to watch it again. And now as we're talking about it, I want to go watch it again. And it sounds ridiculous, but I had so much fun. There was not a scene, well, maybe not literally not a scene. I'm sure there was a part that we'll get to where I was like, all right, this is dragging. But pretty much from start to finish, I was having fun and I wanted to know what happened next, which is, in all honesty, a lot of shows, a lot of movies, books, other media that people hand to us and say, oh yeah, this is real exciting. This is really cool. Or this is the popular thing right now in the general consciousness. I'm kind of bored, and you and I have gone through that with a number of shows and movies where we started them, and it's just I don't get it.
One day we will get past episode 2 of Game of Thrones.
No, it ain't gonna happen. Look, that show is terrible. I'm sorry, and we probably just lost a whole bunch of people, but look, that show is just boring.
I didn't even think it was boring. People irritated me, but that's another podcast.
Maybe that's part of the draw, that people just get irritated. Yeah, you're right. It's another podcast. We're gonna digress.
Yeah. So
what about you, wife?
So you were excited. You were excited for the movie. And when you came upstairs and told me that I wouldn't be able to handle it, then I obviously had to freaking handle it.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I think I saw one trailer,
I think I showed you the Sub-Zero Scorpion trailer, the 7-minute one where it's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And and I don't even think you showed me all of that because you're like, oh, you're not gonna be able to handle this.
No,
'cause,
no,
like,
you walked away and oh, by the way, before we get too far into it, in case anybody wasn't sure, there are clearly going to be spoilers for this. So,
yeah, yeah,
and this was on the trailer in the first 7 minutes. So for God's sake, come here, break. But I'm pretty sure you gave up when Scorpion just jams his katana straight down through somebody's dome piece.
yeah. That was the exact point where I walked away. And also, like, when I don't deal with violence against children well, so that was another point where I was like,
I don't think anybody does. Let's be real.
I know this is true, but
Like
bad
that
things
scene
are gonna happen.
Well, before
to
don't get
children.
too far into it because that's the first part of the movie.
Yeah.
So what else? Like, did you go in excited? Did you go in expecting anything? Like, did you think it was going to be terrible? Did you think it was going to be good, or did you just worried that you were going to vomit halfway through?
I mostly just worried I was gonna vomit halfway through. I don't know why. Like, initially, I thought it was just gonna be a redo of the '95 movie. Obviously, that was not the case.
Mm.
So, like, I was expecting to see Johnny Cage and Sonya and, like, all the people that I know, and, like, and by all the people I know, I mean literally the only, like, 3 characters that I know.
It's funny because the two you named, I do not have toys of. So, like, I would have expected you to name Scorpion or Sub-Zero or Goro or somebody that, like, is sitting on a shelf next to me. Like, I'm pointing this way, like anybody can see, but
it took until this movie for me to finally be able to tell Scorpion and Sub-Zero apart just by sight. So, like,
fair.
Let's relax that. So I kind of went into it just be like, all right, it's gonna be a Mortal Kombat movie, and maybe there'll be some quippy lines. That was
some quippy lines, she says.
Yes. Well,
little did you know.
Little did I know I would be quoting this freaking movie for the next 3 days.
Yep. So let's get into it. Opening scene. I'm gonna let you try and restate the first comment you made to me. So we have the opening scene where Scorpion's interacting with his family. You have the adorable moment with his wife, and then he leaves to go on an errand, and then the Lin Kuei show up with Bi-Han leading them. And do you remember what the first thing you turned to me and said?
Yeah, I said, why are the Death Eaters in feudal Japan?
Exactly, because I'm not gonna lie, that kind of went through my head too when I first saw the trailer. The masks do. It's not. Yeah, go ahead.
I openly admit, I was a history major. I study history. Japanese history is a big blank point in my knowledge. And same with Chinese history. I know a little bit. But so maybe there's something there historically that it fits.
Well, the masks and the men pose do have, to my knowledge, and I'm by no means a Chinese or Japanese historian, but they do. It is, well, as I understand it, it's common to have some kind of, like the mask would look like something. Those particular ones, no idea. Like, yeah, I don't know if that's a specific thing.
As far as I'm concerned, with my current knowledge base, it looked like Death Eaters masks, and I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, it was kind of a laugh at an unintentional point as opposed to many other points in the movie. But the opening scene is very reminiscent of last year's animated movie, Scorpion's Revenge, which is another retelling of the Mortal Kombat story, but much truer to the actual Mortal Kombat story as compared to this one, which definitely took some artistic liberties, and we'll elaborate on that as we go through. Now, I don't want to tackle the whole movie scene by scene, but we'll call out some specific things. I thought the opening scene was really cool. It immediately gets you into stuff. It says, okay, here are 2 of the main characters. There's obvious reasons for them to hate each other. You see the foreshadowing with both Scorpion disappearing, the mark on his arm, his only surviving child, Raiden disappearing, although we don't know technically who Raiden is at that point. Obviously, everybody knows who's a Mortal Kombat fan. Like, did this get you interested, wife? Did you care?
Yeah, it got me interested. I do. I still kind of stick by the fact that there's no way that baby stayed quiet that whole long, but, plot. That
is a good point. And Raiden just randomly picking up the baby, and it didn't really, like, just go nuts. I mean, sometimes,
right?
You hand a baby to a relative, and the baby just goes berserk. like not happy. And then other times other people could pick up the baby and it doesn't matter. So maybe Raiden just has that soothing effect.
Yeah. I wouldn't call Raiden soothing by any means, but yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, I do agree with you that
yeah.
there's a couple quibbles that I have with the movie, and one of them, like, okay, I get it's for plot consistency, and we may be harping on something that's irrelevant, but like, you put the kid was crying, you soothe the kid, oh no, something's happening, you put him in a hole, like under the floorboards,
Right?
and that kid takes not a sound, like zero shot that's happening.
Yeah. But
plot
either
concession.
Way, that was. But yeah, the beginning scene drew me in.
Mm-hmm.
I was upset to find out that Scorpion, like, you know, you see this and you're like, oh, Scorpion's a nice dude, and I guess not. From everything that you were telling me.
Yeah,
But
you don't
I'm
really
gonna
get that
stick with
from the
him.
movie. Like, I don't think there's any point where they give you the impression that Scorpion's a bad guy. But
Yeah. But then
he wasn't
Hudson has
exactly
to
a
come
good
in
guy
with,
either.
with the history lesson of
Yeah.
why he's a douche.
Now, it could be true. They changed a lot of things in this universe, so maybe Scorpion's just air quotes, a great ninja, as Raiden describes later in the movie. But
yeah.
Historically, Scorpion has some blood on his hands as well.
Yeah.
just a tad.
Just a little bit. But yeah, no, I really liked the beginning. I thought it worked itself well.
So I will introduce one thing that bothered me about this before we get into Cole, and I'm sure we'll have an extended discussion about Cole, because that is what I believe to be most people's complaints about the movie. But before we get to that, one plot hole, for those of you that's seen the movie, I'm not real clear on how the dragon marking works. And by that I mean it's told to us directly that if someone without a mark kills someone with a mark, then they take that mark. That's how Jax got his, that's how Kano got his, ultimately Sonya gets hers, and presumably a number of the other characters did. It doesn't really explain what happens when someone who has a mark, and presumably Bihan did at the time that he killed Hanzo. Why did that mark pass down? And like, if the chosen ones kill another chosen ones, a marking person kills another marking person, does it just like consume the mark and it goes away? Or obviously it passes down the bloodline? I'm not real clear how that works, because it seems a little weird.
Yeah, I kind of
Seems a
take
little
it as
arbitrary.
there's a finite number of marks in the world.
But then at the end, and I know we're jumping to the end, like Raiden says, oh, well, I'll go find more champions. So is it like...
Yeah, so then you're like, maybe it's not. I don't know.
So unless Raiden... Because this is... And again, we're jumping to the end, but we'll come back. Johnny Cage is teased at the end, which is cool. And there's a lot of jokes about Ryan Reynolds or The Miz becoming Johnny Cage, which would be awesome. But if Johnny Cage is a movie star, then that potentially implies that he also has this birthmark, as opposed to... You know, presumably he didn't murder someone for it.
I mean, it is Johnny Cage, though.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he murdered somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
We'll have to see how this plays out, because when Raiden says, well, I'll find more champions, does that mean he taps people and they become champions? Or, you know, how does that work? Or we'll have to see. They have to elaborate on it more.
As the world continues.
What was that?
I said we will find out as this universe continues.
And hopefully it will, because allegedly some of the main actors signed on for like 5 movies. So I'm very curious. Plus, of course, Shang Tsung's line again at the end where he says death isn't just another portal. I assume we're going to see these characters resurrected. Mortal Kombat is famous, of course, for characters going in and out of the Netherrealm and coming back from the dead, even in the most recent iterations. So really anything could happen. And that's one other comment that I wanted to make that goes into the Mortal Kombat lore end of things. And the most recent one, again, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't played the new Mortal Kombat 11 or the Aftermath DLC, but there's this big time travel thing. And it's alluded to that one of the elder gods, Kronika, the big bad, has been resetting time over and over and over and over and over and over again. And the plot of this game is that she wants to eliminate Raiden because Raiden keeps screwing it up for her.
I mean...
And they do this like big flashback when she does her great big villain speech and explains to Raiden everything that's happening about how she always forces Liu Kang and Raiden to fight. Now, this doesn't happen in this movie, but I'm getting to why it matters to the movie. So they show all of these scenes in like a pseudo flashback of Raiden and Liu Kang looking slightly different, and one of those rapid fire things where it's like flash, then quicker flash, then quicker flash, quicker flash, quicker flash sort of thing, showing all these different variations. And to me, that kind of leads to where the artistic liberties were taken with this movie, where if the Mortal Kombat story has played out so many times like this in the quote unquote canon universe, I'm fine with all of these things being different, because Mortal Kombat has kind of ascended to a myth or legend status where it's, oh, well, I heard the story told this way. Oh, well, I heard that this character did this. Oh, no. They fought in this other battle, and that's where they died. Not at that other one. That was just, a hoax or whatever. And I think that having these different variations is fine. Is this like, you could make an argument that this isn't a good Mortal Kombat movie because it deviates so much from the source material, but it still has enough to be labeled Mortal Kombat, in my opinion. However, I think that it's a nice variation, and it's fine. Like you put it earlier, I'm looking forward to seeing how this universe of Mortal Kombat evolves.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. You got to see how it goes. And I know some people, obviously I'm not a purist of this, so like, but you just got to take it as it comes. And I like taking movies and things for what they are, and then not trying to compare them to what I already know. Now, obviously that was much easier for me with this because I don't know anything. So made it easy.
Fair. I mean, it is a tough thing, and I can't disagree with people that didn't like the movie simply because, oh, well, this is not Mortal Kombat. Yeah. And this is not the Mortal Kombat I expect. Like, who the hell is Cole Young? Why can he just get punched in the face and the dick at the same time by Goro and he doesn't explode into paste? Like,
because he's cool, and
because he has literal plot armor. That's the joke.
Yes,
his arcana is plot armor, which is actually kind of funny, but we'll get there. But anyway, so moving from there, that actually does bring us to Cole, which is part of why I did the whole dissertation thing. Honestly, I like Cole. I would be cool, although I'm sure people would shit an absolute brick if Cole showed up as DLC in a future Mortal Kombat.
I think it would be fun. I don't know why people would hate that.
I think it's cool that he had tonfas. There have been characters that used tonfas in the past in Mortal Kombat. I think his arcana, which we'll get to when we talk about that in more detail, but I think it's cool. It obviously evokes the friendship bracelet or whatever the hell his daughter gave him.
Yeah.
And I think it does explain away a lot of things. It's an action movie, and you take and have to accept certain levels of, like, you watch an old Schwarzenegger movie or an old Stallone movie or a Jason Statham movie or whatever, and it's like no human being can actually sustain that level of punishment.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to happen. But you accept it because it's the action movie and they're the hero. I think a lot of people probably went in saying, I don't like Cole. So then it's easier to then go to the next step, which is there's no reason that Cole should be able to do this thing.
Yeah, and I think that's probably likely.
Mm-hmm.
I did like Cole. Like, even from the beginning. Sometimes I thought his delivery, like, as an actor, the delivery might have been a little flat, but in general, I liked the character.
See, I liked his. I mean, I don't know anything about acting, but finish your thought, and then I have something to ask you for him.
I like his storyline. Like,
I thought it was reasonable.
Yeah, and I liked that. One thing I really liked about it is he has an established family. I feel like a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm the orphan. I have no one. I just have a shower of friendship and yada, yada, yada. And, like, I mean, that's fine. That's a fine story. But it's kind of fun to see, like, he's a grown-ass adult. He's an actual...
It was interesting that they showed glimpses of his life, and it's like you got pulled out of your life to go into this insanity.
Yeah, and it's like... I don't get me wrong, I read YA fic with the rest of them, but it's kind of nice to have, like, instead of the plucky young ingenue, it's like, no, this is a grown ass man going to try to deal with some shit. Like, that was nice.
Yeah, it's definitely, well, I don't want to say a departure. It's obviously not the only example in any kind of media. Like,
No,
this
but
isn't
it
a
was
unicorn, but I agree with you. It does often feel like, well, I've been on my own for so long. I lost my parents years ago, and that's why I have such thick skin and all this shit. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
this guy is like, he was a fighter, like an MMA fighter, and said, you know, got drawn into this lunacy one day where it's like, what the hell is happening? And he had, and this is the thing I wanted to bring up, which is jumping ahead a few scenes, but when he meets up with Sonya and says, like, wait, are you Mortal Kombat? Are you serious? They spelt it wrong. Look at this. There's a K. What's wrong with you? Like, this is insane.
And I do love that scene.
That was a cool scene because that isn't like a reaction that someone would have. And obviously we're, you know, again, it's an action movie. It's a Mortal Kombat movie. You're not going for realism in that sense of, well, how would a normal person react? But it was funny to have that moment of, you're serious right now?
Yeah.
What the hell is
Like,
happening?
What? Yeah. That part was very nice.
I think, and that's something that you'd have to tell me because, again, I don't really even watch many movies. So when you say, oh, well, the acting was flat or it was good, I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I have no idea. But pacing-wise, do you think that it was too much comedy inappropriately, that it was too slow, too fast? Like, did you think we were jumping from thing to thing too much?
No, I think I honestly felt pacing-wise, it was well-timed. And honestly, the only times I felt like he was flat were just some, like, of his exposition scenes. Like, and I don't even know if it was flat so much as, I don't know, it just didn't hit the same for me as some of, like, the other points with the character. But I think pacing-wise overall, they did a good job. It kept it going. And I didn't think there was too much comedy, but I don't think you're going to be able to get me to watch a action movie that isn't blatantly sarcastic and, like, funny. See, I think most of the way through.
I kind of agree with you for myself too. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll watch movies that are just, you know, I guess, quote unquote, macho movies where it's just like two guys beating the living snot out of each other. But I enjoy it way more when it has this infusion of comedy and a little bit of the insanity and silliness that is present in Mortal Kombat. I think it's important because it helps things flow. I think it makes me more interested in the characters. You know, there's a lot of positives.
Life is. Honestly, it feels like it makes it more believable. Like, you're never, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but, like, you never have 100% serious all the time. There's going to be funny bits and crazy bits and of actual life. And even though, you know, this is Mortal Kombat, it's absurd just on principle. It's still nice to see the comedy and have it the way it is. So I thought that way it was all really well done.
Yeah. There were a lot of enjoyable parts of it, and we're kind of coming up to them. So we obviously have, you know, we go from the scene with Scorpion and Sub-Zero to introducing Cole. We meet his family. Jax shows up, and they start explaining why Cole is relevant to any of this compared to, which realistically, for somebody in your position where you don't know Mortal Kombat, all of these people are probably like, well, why do they matter? Other than obviously they're in the movie, but they detail where Cole fits in. Then you get to one of the trailer scenes, which was cool, with the fight between Jax and Sub-Zero. But even before that, they start setting up, and I saw it mentioned in other places, this every time Sub-Zero shows up, you can see the signs of everything getting cold. There's ice. There's snow in July in LA or wherever the hell they were.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool in the scene where, I mean, I think it was in some of the trailers, or at least it was, you know, a brief scene in some of the trailers where he does the lifting the ice and the snow off the ground, then dropping it down like hail, which...
Yeah, that part was cool.
It was funny. It was really cool, but on first viewing, I noticed it, but, you know, I was more focused on what was happening. In that scene, when everybody starts freaking out, because they're like, oh God, it's coming down, there is a dude in the crosswalk that just goes, bam! He goes down like a sack of bricks.
Yeah,
he just gets... It's funny because everybody else is just, you know, like covering their heads and running away. And I'm like, the first time I'm like, oh, it must just be like hail. But this dude goes down like somebody hit him with a hammer.
Yeah, he does.
And I have to admit, I laughed on the second viewing because I like unconsciously remembered it. I'm like, dude, that guy's having a bad day. Talk about wrong place, wrong time.
Right?
So that
all
guy
he needs to do is get a burger, relax.
Yeah, my man's just trying to cross the street, maybe get some ice cream, and kablamo, he gets smashed with a cone in the back of the head.
But yeah, no, that part was pretty good. And I like the foreshadowing for whenever Sub-Zero shows up.
Although
I like how they call attention to it. It's not like, oh, like, it wasn't initially like, oh, it's this ominous thing, like, for his daughter, who I want to say her name is Emily.
I feel like they said her name, but I don't remember.
She's just like, this is really freaking weird.
Yeah, they're all looking around. Oh, no, I think Emily was his wife. Because I think he says, hey, Emily, come look at this. Remember when they're in the getting whatever?
Either way, the daughter's like, what the hell is happening?
She was, the daughter was like, oh, this is cool. And then it goes from flurries to like menacing icicles. It's like, all right, I've changed my mind.
Now something's happening.
Yeah, I disagree with this vehemently.
Yeah.
So, good.
No, so I do like that. I do like the random, Sub-Zero's coming.
Exactly. It's like you know what's about to happen. And you get that uh-oh moment of just a half a second before he shows up or something where it's just enough time for your brain to be like, wait, that's, oh no.
Yeah. I would put an expletive in there, but yes.
Yeah. Well, you're allowed to, wife. This is quite clearly going to be a more adult-focused show. But anyway. So that leads into the part that I was going to talk about, which is the cool thing from the trailer where Sub-Zero freezes Jax's shotgun. And just like, they're fighting hand to hand, and then Jax puts the gun in his face, inches from his face, and he just grabs it and stares him down, and then stares the bullet down. And it's just like, zero fucks given.
Yeah, especially that moment, like, right before them, was like, why isn't he just shooting? And, like, literally, as I'm saying, why isn't he just shooting? Oh, that would be why.
Yeah, here's a good explanation why.
That's why he's not just shooting him and getting it over with.
And I think it showed, I mean, obviously Sub-Zero at this point is several hundred years old. They don't really explain why he's immortal, but you can infer a lot of things about what's going on as to whether it's the marking, it could be Shang Tsung directly, it could be a variety of different things that elongated his lifespan. And it's obvious, I mean, he's an assassin. He's been hunting people for hundreds of years, but he clearly has experience with this sort of thing on top of being an exceptional warrior plus having magic. So, like, this was not a surprise to him. He didn't, I mean, obviously he was ice cold and ice in his veins and all those other cliches, but, like, he's staring down a shotgun in his face and just freezes that shit. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. But in a good way.
There was one complaint that I saw on Twitter or something that somebody was complaining where Jax is fighting Sub-Zero and then Jax knocks him down or throws him or something. And then he gets up and goes, I did 6 tours, motherfucker. And it's just, and somebody reacted negatively to it as like, well, what does that matter? And to me, it's like, if you're in a fight, it's like, you don't realize that Sub-Zero is hundreds of years old. You don't realize that this guy has magic now. I mean, he knew, but like he probably didn't know the extent of the powers. And it's also just like, I'm not taking shit from you. I don't know who you are. I'm taking you to, like, it just felt like an appropriate line in this sort of movie.
No, it definitely did to me. Yeah, especially for Jax's character, the very minimal amount that I know about Jax's character.
But it's also, to me, important, like, those sort of throwaway lines give you information about the character. Like, yeah, Sonya explains later that, oh, well, they were special ops and they did all these things and they tracked down one of the other combatants who had superhuman abilities. But it tells you right there, like, Jax is an experienced soldier. I mean, you could have kind of inferred that from the way he was acting and what was going on. But it gives you a little bit of the backstory as to who Jax is.
Yeah, it's like one quick line tells you a lot about Jax, which I appreciate instead of like a bunch of exposition and stuff.
Which, I mean, to be fair, they did in the almost immediately following scene where Sonya just lays it all out there. Like, and tell me if you had this
in case you missed this.
Yeah, let me tell you, or let me ask you if you had this in your head. You know that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where the one guy is like, has all the crazy shit pinned up on the wall with strings and stuff?
You mean like what people say I look like when I talk about the American Revolution? Yes.
Well, was that the meme that went through your head when Sonya's explaining this shit?
Yeah, actually.
Like,
it really was.
I'm surprised they didn't have Cole have a more animated, like, lady, are you okay sort of reaction? Because, like, that is a, like, just enormous knowledge dump of lunacy.
Yeah, and it was like it was like the way she says it was so fast. That part felt like as she was doing it, I felt weird. I was like, this is awkward. This is taking me out of the movie by how bizarre this actually
That's interesting
is when you think about it.
I hadn't considered that.
But then he said that line. I was like, okay, you know what? That's an acceptable response to this type of batshit crazy.
You got me back in.
Yeah, like, so that kind of that helped with.
See, that's interesting because I hadn't considered that. I mean, to me, I was more focused on all the Easter eggs, which kind of felt like, okay, they were going to have this scene in the movie where the new guy gets explained or has everything explained to them by one of the other characters.
But usually I feel like it's a little more subtle than that.
I don't know. I've definitely seen a lot of movies where it's just like, no, here's the scenario. Bang, 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 bang. And it's like almost like sometimes it's on a computer screen, like they have essentially a prepared video in movie explaining, here's the situation so far. But
I will say at one point in her explanation, it's like, okay, to explain. No, there's too much. To sum up.
Yes, very true.
If you guys don't know that reference, I'm disowning all of you.
But so I do have to call out that throughout the entire movie, but including here, there were a bunch of cool Easter eggs. Like Nightwolf shows up. I think Kotal Khan was showing up there. Obviously, they had Scorpion up there. And if I slowed it down, there would be a bunch of other things. Oh, one cool Easter egg that I didn't notice until I saw it on Twitter. But in the Sub-Zero Jax fight scene, there's a scene where Jax is still like stalking him through, like before they actually fight. And some of the graffiti on the wall are Sub-Zero special moves.
Oh, look at that.
Like like the graffiti was, like if you don't look at it, it's just like random arrows and things, but it's like down to forward light punch.
Oh, look at that. That is super extra and super nerdy.
But they have like an enormous amount of Easter eggs. Some overt, like Naitara, who we'll get to later. I don't know if that counts as an Easter egg because it's a character, but she is a super obscure character comparatively. Mm-hmm. To the graffiti, to the characters on this wall. There's a bunch of cool stuff. But speaking of cool stuff, we get to so here's the meme. I'll lay it out for everybody. Shortly after the movie released, the actor for Kano was hospitalized for putting the whole movie on his back.
Because he totally did.
He really did. Like, no joke. What's funny is I'm looking at the movie poster right now, right? I'm going to pop the picture up of the man right now, covering up the movie poster, because if you notice, it's Cole from left to right, or at least my left to right. Cole, Sonya, Jax, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Shang Tsung, Melina, Cabal. Kano's not even on the damn poster.
And he is the only reason why I stayed to watch it. So,
Kano is a character that I never liked. And not just because he's a scumbag, but like, I just never cared for the character until the 95 Mortal Kombat movie. And I thought the guy who did Kano was really cool. Like, I still didn't really like him, but it's like, oh, that's a cool rendition of Kano. And then I still didn't care about Kano until Mortal Kombat 11. I'm like, oh, there's some funny stuff and like cute things that they did with Kano. All right, I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Then this movie hit, and it's like, no, Kano is hilarious. Or at least this Kano is hilarious. Do you want to explain arguably the funniest part of this movie, wife? We're only like 20 minutes into the movie, and it's like the highlight of the movie.
So this is the thing that we have been quoting for the last 3 days. So she's explaining, she explains who Kano is. She being Sonya explains who Kano is. She explains about Mortal Kombat, and then, what's his face goes. Cole goes, "Where's your marking?" And she goes, well, I don't have one.
Wah,
Wah,
wah.
wah.
It's off screen and so
It's
quiet.
It's so quiet, but it is the best line in this whole movie.
Right before this happens, because it's only like a 5-second exchange, I turned, because I knew it was coming, and I turned to wife and go, you need to listen right now. Like, I don't care what you're doing. You listen.
Yeah.
She just looks at me like, whatever they're about to say cannot possibly be that important. Like, yeah, she didn't say that, but that was the look.
It was a deserving look, and then that happened, and then I admitted that I was wrong.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So and apparently that was another thing based on people's reactions in various comment threads and stuff, that it because it's quiet and it's coming from off screen, it's easy to miss. I know it's audible, so coming from off screen shouldn't really matter, but like, you know, if you're focused on the movie, maybe you know, if you're watching it at home, especially, you know, you're screwing around with your popcorn, you're looking at your phone, you may not hear it. And like, if you miss that, I feel so bad for people. I laughed so hard the first time.
Oh, it was so funny.
It was so funny. Like, I lost my shit. It was ridiculous.
It was a very good line.
I know we're harping on a single thing, and it's almost a sound effect. It's not even a line. But that was the moment where I'm like, all right. I mean, I was enjoying the movie up to that point, but when that line hit, I'm like, all right. I'm in now. We're doing this. We're on this.
Yeah.
So then Reptile attacks, and I'm not a huge fan of I like the more humanoid looking Reptile. I get he's reptilian. But like when he's literally a giant lizard, it feels weird. And even Mortal Kombat itself has gone this route where they've differentiated him, because originally, obviously, in the original Mortal Kombat, it was Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Reptile was a hidden character, and they were just palette swaps of each other. And then, obviously, the movesets were different. Well, Reptiles was a combination. But anyway, I digress. Point is that the ninjas look pretty much the same other than the colors. Mileena and Katana in Mortal Kombat 2, palette swaps. They did this a lot for technical reasons. And obviously, it made it easier to generate the game when you could just swap a handful of things.
Yeah. Over
time, they evolved and differentiated the different characters so that even the true ninjas like Scorpion and Sub-Zero look wildly different. Noob Saibot, Ermac, Reptile, all of these other characters, they all look wildly different from one another, and Reptile has gone more the way of looking like a bipedal reptile.
Yeah, I forgot that Reptile was a character, and my first thought was, why is there a Komodo dragon attacking them?
Well, first you asked, what the hell is that thing? Because they did a cool thing with his camouflage where... So before this, Shang Tsung said, send in the reptile, or send in the reptilian, and it sounded like he said Sizor, which is a Pokemon. Yeah. I have to go back and listen to it closer because I can't quite tell what he says. Send in the reptilian something. And it sounds like Sizor, which I'm like, I don't know about the Pokemon crossover, but I guess.
I mean, I'm here for it.
So... It did look really cool with the camouflage, and there was obviously another funny scene where Sonya ends up accidentally stabbing Kano. Reptile has a pretty decent fight scene, all things considered, even though he still goes down. But obviously, you know, we can't have our heroes taken out in, the third major scene?
Yeah.
So, good.
No, I thought he had cool attacks. I just, A, know nothing about Reptile the character, and B, it just for a little bit looked just like a random Komodo dragon attacking. So
I mean, until he stood up, and then which leads to another funny scene where naturally you have to squeeze in the Kano fatality, Mortal Kombat 1 fatality, where he tears out his heart, and then Reptile's obviously screaming in pain, and then Kano is just screaming back in his face, like,
yep,
we'll go for like a solid 20 seconds. It felt like,
yeah, it definitely did,
to the point where it definitely felt to me. This is another one in the category of, if you didn't like it, I get it, but to me, this was action movie funny.
Yeah, it felt like Brendan Fraser in The Mummy.
Kind of, yeah. Well, he does that to one of the mummies.
Yeah. That was what my first thought. I was like, oh, hey, it's The Mummy all over again. It was
pretty funny. So we end up then going through a number of other, you know, kind of quippy scenes, I guess. So that Sonya barters with Kano to try and get to Raiden's temple because apparently he used to run guns through there, which is obviously a colossal lie because they have, you know, The thing on the plane where the line about Kano's mom being dead for like 20 years or 30 years or something like that to, well, we're about 24 clicks away. Well, maybe 26. If we say 28, nobody will be surprised. We'll round up to an even 30. And then he just keeps going. And that was one that I felt they also did a good job on the delivery because it's almost like a Family Guy joke where it's funny and it's like, all right, I get it. And then it's funny again because it went on so long.
Yeah. I thought that line was really good.
Yeah.
All the them searching for the temple lines were hilarious to me, personally.
Including when Liu Kang shows up and Kano pulls a knife on him. Liu Kang shoots him with a fireball and then straight up goes, "I'm not your enemy." Dude, I don't know how you greet people, but like normally it's a handshake. Maybe not anymore because of COVID, but like a wave, a hold up, a hello. Fireballs are not the first thing.
Yeah. And then it leads to the other. Can I say the other line that I've been quoting this entire time?
Sure, wife.
Just so as they're leaving, Liu Kang puts right.
Yeah, Liu Kang.
Yeah. Just casually puts his hand on his shoulder, and he just goes, "The fuck."
Yeah, but you gotta sell it. So like Liu Kang says the user like, "You need to come with me," like real somber and sincere, and getting to the point. You need to come with me to the temple. And then Kano's like, "Well, can't you show me how to shoot fireballs out of my hands?" He's still freaking out about this, which again is also a cool, like just like Cole's reaction earlier. Naturally, he's going to respond, which is admittedly a little weird because he presumably killed somebody. He took the mark from someone, so maybe they didn't have their Arcana yet. All right, fine. But then Reptile shows up, and it's like, dude, I don't know if I'd be surprised by someone shooting fireballs out of their hands anymore.
Yeah, right?
Like, after you murdered Reptile, like, I don't know what else surprises you at this point, but the way Liu Kang just calmly puts his hand on his shoulder, he just looks at him like, the fuck? And it was, again, a super quiet line.
It was a very quiet, it was like almost a throwaway line, and that to me may be, it might be tied with wah wah as the funniest line in the movie.
Wah. It's just so good.
Just like, it was just such like, okay, we're calm, the fuck? It was so good.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't know if we see it yet, but at some point in the movie, so everybody seems to manifest the dragon marking in a different place. So Jax had it on like his hip or his abdomen, like around his stomach. Cole had it on his chest. Kano has it as a neck tattoo, which just feels very appropriate.
So here's my thing. Sonya does say that, but then no, that wouldn't make sense because that'd be in her face. Because he got his by slitting somebody's neck. So
you were gonna say like how they killed them is how they got it or something.
Yeah, but then that would like go over her face.
Yeah, it would have been like an eye patch. It would have looked like Harley Quinn makeup.
Yeah, that would have been a little much.
But I forget where hers ends up. I feel like it's just on her arm.
It's her, yeah, it's just an arm.
Oh, yeah, because it's just on her arm. Well, that was another theory that I had, that, like, it somehow manifests where your powers are, but, like, it doesn't quite fit either.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we end up going to the temple. You get introduced to Kung Lao. You meet Raiden. The bad guys show up. There's a bunch of stuff that goes on here. A bunch of other funny lines from... especially with Kano for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Like he turns around when they start training. He's like, all right, no Harry Potter shit.
Yeah, that part was great.
Like that line, I looked at you as soon as he said it and you just kind of nodded to me.
Yeah. I knew you were going to look, so
of course.
It was fine. Yeah.
Then they, good.
But yeah, no, I liked all of their stuff in the temple. I liked
Did you think it was too fast, like too rushed or anything like that?
No.
One of the weird things that I thought was how often they're like, your training begins now, and then we need to get training. Like Liu Kang or Kung Lao must have said the word training 50,000 times, which I get. They're super hyper focused. But it did take me out of it a little bit, and it felt like these were spliced together scenes.
Yeah.
Where it's like they're walking from area A to area B. It's like, we have to begin training. And then they cut away. And then 10 seconds later, they do the same thing. What?
Yeah, that might be one of the things I would notice if I like played the game again.
Mm.
If I watch the movie again. But since I haven't, it worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I get it. Raiden admonishing all of them, which again was another funny Kano thing. Another Easter egg with Shinnok's amulet showing up there. I want to know where the monks got all the super high tech to give Jax arms.
Yeah.
Like
that.
So that was one thing that I think is also a concession to, look, this is just, A, it's an action movie, B, it's a Mortal Kombat movie, so Mortal Kombat people can survive and take punishment that under no other circumstances should they.
Yeah.
You can also just chalk it up to magic, but, like,
yeah.
the trauma that Jax suffered as a result of losing his arms, like, that would take a lifetime, I assume. I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but I feel like that's going to take an enormous amount of time pre-Arcana manifestation to even be able to use your arms, let alone like fight 20 minutes later when the bad guys show up.
Yeah, that part was a little interesting.
I think it's implied because Liu Kang says something in the beginning like, we won't see another full moon. So there could hypothetically have been many days, but it felt like it was only 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, definitely did.
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Jax was still unconscious through everything, just from the level of physical trauma that he suffered.
Frozen and shattered. And yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm not a doctor, but it's just like, okay, even for Mortal Kombat, that's like, I don't know.
That's a little fast.
That's like watching the X-rays and going, yeah, that guy totally stands up after you impaled him 3 times through the face and then gutted him. Like, that's not how the human body works.
It's totally a thing.
Go ahead.
No, and I liked as they're in the temple, the dinner scene with Kano
where he gets his Arcana.
Like, yeah. And I will not call it an Akuma.
Did you see that? Like, did you expect what Kung Lao was doing was intentional, or did you think he was just being a dick?
Yeah, no, I figured out what was happening pretty fast.
Yeah, it's like, at first it's like, he is just being a dick. Because Kung Lao's character, you wouldn't know this, but like Kung Lao's character has kind of taken on in more recent games, a very, I guess, more flamboyant, more, verging on arrogance, very confident personality.
I mean, I can see that. I could definitely see that. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious, and I definitely was just like, oh, yep, he's about to get it, because they're just going to keep screwing with him, and he's going to rage out, and maybe I just live with too many angry people in my life, but, yeah, I definitely saw that.
It's also funny, like, again, calling out stuff from Kano, and we could probably do a whole podcast on just the things Kano says and does, but
I will. I volunteer.
Like, he just, that entire scene, besides the enormously constant stream of unique insults that he says, it's not just him calling him stupid or something really loudly over and over and over again. Like, yes, a writer wrote this and it's an actor playing it, but it's we'll say a wide vocabulary of insults, culminating in him. He's like, he gets this awesome superpower, and one of the first things he does is turns around to the last guy who he thought had a cool superpower, and goes, "Fuck you, your superpower sucks." Like, that was the first thing that he does, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was very amusing.
It's
definitely fitting.
Yeah, every time that guy was in a scene, which, was most of the movie, it's like, yeah, that's Kano. Like, that is... So, I mentioned loving the 95 movie. The actor who played Shang Tsung will forever be Shang Tsung for me.
Yeah.
And they even brought him back for Mortal Kombat 11. Like, he is the guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the new Shang Tsung anyway, and we'll talk about that later, but... in the same way, like, this is forever Kano.
I remember watching the 95 movie with you at some point, probably another time, that I was trying to prove that I was badass, and being like, oh, Johnny Tsunami's grandpa, and you got real upset with me for that. but to
I don't
me, he
remember
will
that at
always
all.
be. He's Johnny Tsunami's grandpa.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you got annoyed. You can just live with it.
If you say so, wife.
But no, he. Since seeing it with you, it definitely does sound, and he will always be Shang Tsung.
Yeah, and where I'm going with it, like I said, is now this guy who's playing Kano is Kano for me.
Yeah, he is Kano.
I will never look at Kano the same. It will always be this guy, and it's hilarious to me.
I'm honestly really upset that he's dead.
Now, well, like I said earlier, nobody truly ever dies in Mortal Kombat. That never happens.
And shit. Yeah.
So, one thing before we get to some of the other stuff, one thing that I want to call out for the temple is ultimately, we have the bad guys show up. There's going to be a showdown. Clearly, our protagonists are not prepared. They're about to get their ass kicked. Everything's going to end, and Raiden locks them out. So they go through their training, and then Cole can't get there to find his Arcana, especially after Kano does. Sonya's labeled a liability because she doesn't have any superpowers. So Cole gives up, essentially, and Raiden sends him home, which, if Raiden is doing this, like, he foresaw Shang Tsung was going to pull all this crap and all these things were going to happen, and he figured this was the best route, I can accept it. But it seemed a little weird to just go give up on the guy, especially when you're so desperate.
I mean, I think he foresaw the fact that the only way he was going to get his Arcana is to go home to his family, because that's who he is.
Like I said, Raiden, I can kind of accept doing it. What bothered me a little bit was Cole leaving of his own volition, which I get. It's a movie. The guy, is obviously down about everything. The God of Thunder on Earth says, look, you're not physically or mentally fit to be here. Get the fuck out. You're in a bad spot. But he went there and left and went on this insane crusade simply because he wanted to protect his family. He thought he would be safer if he was away from them. So his immediate thing to do is, hey, you could get something that would help you protect your family. Run away while you don't have it and draw the bad guys to your family.
Yeah, that part. They never said he was smart.
I mean, he obviously just got his head beat in by that random schmuck in the fight at the beginning of the movie. So, maybe he wasn't thinking clearly. I don't know. And also, not long before that, Kano was just beating him to a pulp for funsies.
But I mean, you see it even in the beginning of the movie. His daughter is the brains of the operation, so just let that slide. It
just seemed a little. I mean, I get it. I understand to some extent the mindset. Obviously, I'm not trying to save the world from a bunch of monsters from Outworld or something like that, and I'm not the chosen one. But it seemed weird that it's like, dude, you explicitly said to get away from your family to keep them safe. Now you're going to go back to them without any protection. No one's going with you. You have no powers. You clearly can't take these things. I don't know. What's your plan? Just run, I guess?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Run fast.
But anyway, that aside, so we get another hilarious scene, but this time in Outworld with another member of the Black Dragon, and that's Cabal, who is incidentally on the movie poster, but not Kano.
Which is what? Just what?
I don't... And what's crazy is, I think everybody knew Liu Kang and Kung Lao were going to be in the movie. So they have Cole, Sonya, Jack, Scorpion. They probably want to keep symmetry because then they have, like I said, Sub-Zero, Shang Tsung, Mileena, and Cabal. And hilariously enough, Sub-Zero gets top billing over Shang Tsung, but I get it. Couldn't they have put, Liu Kang or Kung Lao on there and then put Kano on the other side or something? Or maybe that would have given it away.
Maybe it's because, you're not supposed to know what side he's on. That's why they decided.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they just didn't want to put it out there. Because I will admit, for a while, when I saw it on the first viewing, I was trying to go in with an open mind. And given that they had Cole and all this stuff and the way they interacted with Kano, I was like, is Kano just going to be a gun for hire? Maybe for this movie, he's a good guy and he backstabs them in some other way at the end, but doesn't switch sides until late. It almost felt like maybe Kano's just going to be a colossal dickhead, but he's going to be a dickhead for the good guys, and they were going to upend things that much.
Yeah.
Obviously not, because Cabal says, yeah, he's a giant D-bag. You're going to love him.
Yeah.
It's like the interaction. Good.
That was great. I did love that line.
Well, the interaction between the two, when Cabal explains to Kano the plan and talks him into working for Shang Tsung, that there were a bunch of people in the Mortal Kombat community that said, yeah, I want like a buddy cop movie with Kano and Cabal. Or a TV show with Kano and Cabal, because it would be hilarious.
I definitely would be.
I really like that. I wish we had more time with Cabal.
I do too. I definitely do too.
Because I think that I don't know if it would have been up to the level of the way Kano was in this movie, but I feel like it would have been.
Yeah, I think it would have been. I don't know. I thought Cabal was really funny. I did like that line. I don't know enough about their characters or their interactions, I guess, to really say definitively.
Yeah, this one was pretty close. I was okay with. I was okay with all of it, but the Cabal Kano relationship was fun.
Yeah,
and like I said, I wish we could have seen more of it, but I don't know how you would fit it in for it to make sense or anything. It is a little annoying. Again, the liberties here, like Kano does work for the bad guys in the games at different points. Often, he's really working for himself, but happens to be doing things on their behalf. Cabal doesn't even show up until Mortal Kombat 3, but then you can make the argument, well, Melina doesn't show up until Mortal Kombat 2, nor does Jax. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that are out of sequence here with relationship to the games, but like we talked about earlier, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, moving from there, we kind of rapid fire go into a whole bunch of things to get to the conclusion of the movie, because you have this moment where, okay, everything's going downhill. Goro's about to tear Cole and everyone else into pieces. The heroes are just getting demolished. Like, General Reiko's crushing Jax. Melina doesn't even bother killing Sonya, which leads to another funny Kano line of "girls can be so mean." Like,
that was so good.
That was such a random line. It's just like, okay, the delivery on all this is great. This is where Naitara, she showed up sooner, but she has her 10 seconds of fame and then immediately gets fatality by Kung Lao. Which was one of those moments where I knew it was coming, and I'm like, wife, you may want to look away for this.
Yeah, I had that feeling. Did I watch? No, I didn't.
No. It's the one where she gets split in half by the spinning hat.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
I
did not.
When I saw Naitara, I was like, oh, wow, that's a deep cut. And then immediately my thought went to, she's definitely going to die. Like, 100% going to die. And probably in a silly fashion. Although it was kind of silly, but it does show, like, it made Kung Lao look good. Where Kung Lao looked like, okay, we saw him beat the crap out of our heroes, but we knew that our heroes were not up to snuff. Now it's like, okay, yeah, he's uncontested until Shang Tsung just slaughters him immediately.
Yeah.
Telekinetically pulls him in, sucks his soul, and that's the end of Kung Lao.
Yeah.
But, good.
I definitely, I was a little disappointed in Kung Lao's death. I was like,
really?
Oh, yeah, well, because it was like, all right, he's holding his own. It's good. And then that happens. And I'm like, well,
what's kind of funny is we had 3 major heroes, 4 if you count Scorpion. So Scorpion's, top billing. And he started the movie. So like, okay, Scorpion's got to come back and do something, right? Then you have Cole, who's the no-name guy who we've been following the whole movie, so he's got to be important. Then you have Liu Kang, who's the traditional champion of Mortal Kombat. And then you have Kung Lao, who's, at least in the game, sidekick. But here they gave him, like, he's a big deal. He's the descendant of the great Kung Lao, and he's the leader and all this stuff. And it's like, we got 4 people fighting for top dog status. Like, not all of them are going to make it.
I guess that's true.
I feel like that's a Game of Thrones level setup where, in the beginning they said, well, these are all the main characters, and then they kill them all and then replace them with the actual main characters. And that's kind of what it was, although we knew who the other main characters were ahead of time, I guess. I don't know.
No, I agree with that.
It was a little, I do agree with you. I was surprised that he died. I don't think it was necessary, and we'll get to the unnecessary stuff at the end. I think there were a lot of ways to redo the entire movie that would not have it would have materially changed the movie, but would not have probably significantly impacted the way the writers had set it up for the most part. But we'll talk about that later. So let me ask you about Goro. Did you like Goro? Did you care? Did you think he looked good, like graphics wise?
No.
You thought he looked ugly? I thought he looked cool. I remember the old Goro, and even back in '95, I'm like, I don't know about this one.
No.
I thought he looked cool. Dude, now I'll admit, okay.
He looks like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, you said that after we watched the movie, and I'm like, I don't see it, wife.
I
think you forget what stop motion animation looks like.
He looks like stop motion animation, like more fluid, but like he looks like he was made of clay.
I guess. I think the coolest he looked was actually the scene from the trailer where he's like just leaping forearm, about to just crush Cole. But this brings up a comment that I also saw online where people were complaining, how could Cole hold his own against Goro? Like, how's that even possible?
He didn't hold his own.
And it's like, I don't know if I saw the same movie. Cole was dead meat.
Yeah, I mean, the closest I can get to him holding his own is him not immediately becoming meat paste.
Yeah, and we said it earlier. I said it earlier that when Goro picks him up and then punches him in the face and in the dick at the same time from a dude that's like 9 feet tall, and I think if I remember from the books, he was like over half a ton or something like that. Like, he should have just exploded on the spot.
Yeah.
So, again, action movie thing where just like the hero gets the crap beat out of them, a building collapses on them, they still survive. Like, yeah. I can accept that. And I thought Cole actually played it right. Like, the move when he first of all, he tried to set up an ambush, and Goro outsmarted him, which is hilarious. He's like, oh, you think I'm going to come through the front door? No, I'm going to punch down the whole side of the barn, or whatever the fuck that was. Yeah. And then 2, Cole, I thought, played it well when he's trying to escape, and he just straight up tackles or shoulder charges the support beam to cause the whole building to come down, which realistically is probably very dumb. He's more likely to just separate his shoulder or shatter his collarbone into a billion pieces. But again, it's a movie, adrenaline, whatever. I thought it was the first time I went through, I'm like, that's actually a cool idea. At least you're buying time, and like, you're clearly not fighting this guy hand to hand. It's just not happening.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
But I thought it was cool that his wife, I think they say it's his wife in the movie.
Yeah.
So
or at least it's his partner of some kind.
Yeah, well, I thought it was in the beginning, the very beginning, when the trainer guy that's setting up the fights comes in, and he's talking to the wife, or what we're assuming is his wife, and she says something to the effect of, I don't watch him fight anymore. In my head, I'm like, is he divorced, and then like the kid just wants to hang out with dad and comes to the fights? But it's obviously by the end of the movie you realize, no, they're still together.
Yeah.
So she comes in with the axe and just hits Goro like right in the kidneys. Clearly doesn't bother him. But then through the power of friendship, like it's a My Little Ponies episode, Cole is able to find his Arcana.
Going with Care Bears, but yes.
The Care Bear stare. The literal.
Honest to God, I was like, he's doing the fucking Care. Oh man, it's happening.
And then his chest started glowing too. When he got hit, his chest started glowing. Like
that was why I was like, it's the Care Bear stare.
So it seems super silly, but you and I talked about this before, like before we started recording. I like his Arcana, and I think it makes sense. Where this guy is all about
sense, and I do like it. It was the Care Bear stare.
Yeah, well, I want to explain why it makes sense, because all of the other Mortal Kombat characters are clearly going to get things related to them. Like whatever their Mortal Kombat superpowers are. Obviously, Sub-Zero freezes things. Sonya can shoot rings. Melina can teleport. Cabal is super duper fast, etc. Jax has his arms, and he didn't do any of his signature moves other than the gotcha grab, but that's like, he just grabs somebody and then punches the shit out of them. But, so, him having this defensive armor, and I guess the tonfas also kind of fit, but like, what I keep referring to as the friendship bracelet, the strength bracelet, becoming his armor, and yes, it is, as I joked a moment ago, plot armor. like, it
Literally
makes sense that
and
he's the
figuratively.
defensive guy. He wants to protect his family. He's a shield as compared to any of these other people who know, like they were already well versed in this, or they had a leaning into certain things, whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought it made sense. It obviously called back to earlier in the movie. I thought it was pretty cool.
I agree.
Although I thought it was a
definitely
little weird that despite the brutal fashion in which Cole dispatches Goro, like he hacks off one of his hands, he almost bisects the guy, like to the point where his innards are spilling out, which was very Mortal Kombat, and then just punches the one Tonfa through his skull. There wasn't a drop of blood on him afterwards.
Yeah.
So either Goro, because he's a Shokan and being on Earth, like his blood evaporates,
Maybe.
or like I don't know about that. I mean, I get, because my first thought was, oh, he runs and hugs his family, and I'm like, dude, don't you think that's kind of gross? You have like his lower intestinal. Oh, you have nothing on you. How does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is silly, but it was just silly. It was funny.
In my head, I went, oh, and I might have said it out loud. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. So
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. No, that was when Goro got hit in the face.
Yeah.
When Cole uppercutted him.
Yeah.
That
was the only line that came to mind.
So this does bring up another point of like, dude, Raiden,
What the fuck?
where are you? What are you doing, dude? Like, are you playing Elder God chess or something? Like, or is this like Mortal Kombat? I must consult the Elder Gods.
Like, they had a plan. And Raiden just went, oh, fuck you, the plan.
Well, this is, of course, we're all referring to when Cole comes back and now Kung Lao dies. Because although we talked about it earlier, Kung Lao didn't die yet.
Okay.
Jax
Kung Lao's
gets...
dead now.
Yeah, Kung Lao's now dead. But it didn't... So, like, Raiden Cole shows up, Jax finds his Arcana, saving Sonya, the heroes start turning the fight, and then they go to peace out because Shang Tsung starts to get involved. And then all of a sudden, Raiden's nowhere to be found. It's like, dude, just get everyone the hell out of there. Kung Lao did not need to die. What are you doing? And they even ask him, and it's like, dude, why didn't you do something? He goes, well, I can't save everybody. The fuck you can't? Right. What are you doing?
That was, yeah. And then so okay. So I'm gonna talk through this part quickly.
Okay.
So, okay, Cole comes back. All right. Everybody shows off their new superpowers, except for, Sonya doesn't have her superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Cole's like, all right, here's the plan. So he's like, all right, look, Sonya, you're better than Kano, obviously. So, like, go take him down.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So they all disperse. But the plan is, because Jax even says, he's like, nobody's going to be able to take on Sub-Zero on their own. So they all go. We're going to continue with the fights. I mean,
they win all their 1Vs.
I don't know how much detail we really need to go into all the 1V fights. Like,
no.
They're very stereotypical action movies.
Well, except for the acetone in the face. Like, that was... I have to call that out. Like, and it's just a giant bottle that just says acetone. And she just cracks him in the face. That was really funny.
Yeah, that was really funny. And obviously, Sonya killing him with a garden gnome means I will never be able to look at lawn gnomes the same way ever again in my life. So, that fight all the fights were good. I don't have any complaints.
Overall, all the fight scenes, like, this is blanket. All the fight scenes I think were awesome.
Yeah, they did great. And then we get to the plan where you're all gonna go deal with freaking Sub-Zero together through the power of friendship. We can, like, tie that back in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does Raiden do? He abandons the plan. Why does he abandon? I hate Raiden.
Well, it's okay. I get that Cole would be one-on-one with Sub-Zero for some amount of time, right? Like, it makes sense. Because he immediately, he freaks out and charges through the portal. Like, all of that up to that point, I'm fine with. I'm on board with it. And even the beginning of the fight.
Yeah.
But Raiden, dude, what? Where are you? Why haven't you teleported everyone there? What are you waiting for?
Yeah, he just, like, waits and then waits.
The
and
only
then
thing that I
waits
could
more.
think is like he literally doesn't know where they are, so therefore he can't teleport to a specific spot. But he obviously finds them eventually at the end, so like
he finds them literally 30 seconds after the fight is over. Now, bullshit. He knew exactly where they were the whole time.
He was letting him prove himself or some. It's like, no, dude. The plan was to just beat the snot out of Sub-Zero. What would have been better, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, is like he teleports everyone there, and then they go, no, this is his fight. And then Cole's like, what are you talking about? And then he turns around and like Scorpion's there, and then that leads into the scene. But like something like that, where I don't understand why Raiden just did. I think he said just before that to Jax that when they were in the void, that he's not supposed to interfere. But it's like, dude, you already took these steps. You literally just did this.
You did the thing. It's happened. It's over.
It's like it's over. You might as well do it again because it's like. Right? But anyway, so that does lead into the last scene, which is this is a cool fight. I think it's cool that Scorpion came back. Obviously, you have the awesome. He says the line. He says, "Get over here." They have the Mortal Kombat theme start playing, the new one, which I don't like as much as the old one, but it felt awesome here. You have a super cool fight between the two, even though, like, dude, this was probably the most Mortal Kombat fight in that there is no reason that Sub-Zero should be able to even fight. Like, he shouldn't be alive, let alone be able to fight.
Yeah.
Because just from the beginning, when Scorpion harpoons him through his bicep, I'm going to assume that your arm shouldn't work anymore.
You would assume.
But again, a Mortal Kombat movie, and they did, so notably, Sub-Zero did like favor his arm and was clearly acting like it was injured at various points, which was interesting to me because clearly in the fight, there was nothing holding him back. But in between, when they had like the scenes when they were threatening each other and stuff, you could see him, or when he was remaking his sword, you could see him struggling with certain body parts. And even later in the other fight scenes, after he took a beating to certain places, it was like he clearly was not in full control any longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought do you think it was a fitting end to the movie? Like, was that an appropriate fight? Do you think that it was worthwhile? Do you think they copped out on anything?
No, I thought it was an appropriate fight. And, like, I mean, once you get down to it, like, obviously, for the plot, he had to fight him himself with Scorpion coming back. And it's like, and then he basically Cole gives up the fight and just is focused on getting his family out of the ice and all that jazz.
People were making fun of that, too, because it's like Scorpion fighting for their lives and him just punching ice blocks on the side. But yeah, I mean, again,
also failing at it somehow.
Well, to be fair, I think he loses the tonfas because there was a point where he tried to like reconjure them and couldn't for some reason.
Okay.
And so he's just bare fist punching huge blocks of ice. To be fair, like you're probably just going to shatter your hands.
True.
Aside from the plot armor, but what are you going to do?
But yeah, no, I thought the fight was good. It was a Mortal Kombat fight, so it was fine. And then I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of the new song. I thought it was fine. I think that's about as far as I can go with that. It's fine.
They got in the Scorpion fatality.
They did.
What did he said that another Harry Potter reference.
Crap. I know. I can't remember.
Because you said he died like Voldemort.
Oh, yeah, because he flakes away.
I mean, in this case, the guy was incinerated, so it kind of makes sense.
But it was just like, it's Voldemort flaking away. Okay. I mean, it makes more sense in this than it did in Harry Potter. It was fucking stupid in Harry Potter, and I will die by that.
So, one joke that I wanted to throw in here is, like, so they scarred up Scorpion's Menpo, the mask. Mm-hmm. Presumably be like, oh, he was in hell, because Raiden said that earlier. He's been wandering hell since then, and Scorpion says he was able to tame or learn to control the fires of hell. Yeah, they apparently don't have toothbrushes because his teeth were gross, which I don't think they were at the beginning of the movie, but it was just funny that I don't know if that was intentional or supposed to be from him burning everything. I think we saw his teeth before that when he was talking, because he kept taking his... That was another thing that, just like earlier when I was saying they kept saying training 1,000 times, this felt like very much like a cut up scene in that Scorpion kept taking his mask off and then putting it back on, and then taking it off and putting it back on, and then taking it off and putting it back on. It's like, dude, just say what you have to say. And then put the mask on. But so it was clearly like these were spliced scenes, which is fine. It just stood out to me even on first watching. I'm like, what? Why is he doing that? Is like, he was in hell, so it gave him a nervous tick.
Maybe.
But anyway, so I agree with you. No toothbrushes in hell, apparently. I have to reiterate, I don't like the new Shang Tsung's look. There was actually a point earlier that I forgot to mention. I think it was when they first breach Raiden's temple. Sub-Zero kicks in the door, basically freezes open the door, whatever. And Shang Tsung shows up, but when he walks through, it looks like he has regular eyes, and then the CGI kicks in and his eyes are all black.
Yeah, I still haven't. I need to rewatch that.
I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Or
Yeah, I have to go back because I only noticed that on the second viewing. There are these little things that showed up that I don't know if that's supposed to be, yes, he did this because now he's angry. You know what I mean? Or something like that. So I don't like the new Shang Tsung look, but I mentioned early, the 95 Shang Tsung will forever be Shang Tsung to me. But this brings back the whole, does Raiden choose champions? Because at the end he says, well, what do we do now? Well, I'll get you a new list of champion, and we get the Johnny Cage tease. One thing that I'm curious about is, are Sonya and Jax like AWOL?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because in the games, there's a bunch of parts where they try to convince their superiors that Outworld is a threat, and like there's an imminent invasion, and everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what monsters, four-armed creatures, sorcerers? You're insane. Then Mortal Kombat 3 happens, and then everybody goes, oh, I guess this is real. And it kind of goes on from there. They found a special branch of the military and stuff like that to fight all of the threats from outside of Earth.
Yeah.
Here, it's just like I alluded to earlier, it's that meme of the guy from It's Always Sunny and Sonya in a basement kidnapping people. And like, do other people know about this? Is this official? What is happening?
Yeah.
It's a little confusing.
Definitely is.
So that's, I mean, we didn't cover every scene. We didn't cover every line. There's a lot of things that we could have gone back to. There's a lot of cool things that happened. I know I critiqued a lot of things, or maybe not enough from what people said. I tried to call out the critiques from what I saw online, which obviously there's lots of people with both ends of the spectrum. And I think ultimately they could have axed the entire Cole storyline and had not even necessarily another Mortal Kombat character. You don't even need another one. It could have just been only Sonya was on the mission to fight when they said that Jax killed somebody and that's how he got the marking. They were hunting this person. It could have been Sonya or Jax. And then the other one suddenly gets roped in because either they were tangentially related or something, like they were on the mission or they found debriefed about the mission or whatever happens. And then that the other character is the one that fills the Cole asking the questions role.
Yeah.
And then pretty much everything else I think could have happened. You know, like you'd have to find somebody else to fight Goro, or you could cut Reiko and then make Jax fight Goro.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of things that would have to change. Obviously, you'd lose a whole bunch of the movie. I don't think the Cole thing was necessary. Like, it just wasn't.
I mean, I don't think it was necessary. I still enjoyed it.
That's the thing. Despite all of that, I actually liked Cole. I thought he was a good addition. I would play him in Mortal Kombat. I mean, realistically, I only play the characters I like, but, you know, like, Cole would be cool to have added to the roster. And I enjoyed him being there. So I think, as we started out with, that this is fine. Like, I do like this. But as a concession to everybody who understandably did not enjoy it, I think they could have done something much closer to the true Mortal Kombat story. Because this one felt like a mesh of multiple Mortal Kombats. Obviously, they drew characters from multiple different games. They had characters interacting in ways that weren't really close. They had the brand new character in Cole. They changed the background story in a number of respects for Scorpion and Sub-Zero. There are a lot of
Mhm.
things that could have been closer to the original or the origins anyway. I think that's okay. I thought it was definitely a lot of fun, and like I said at the top, I'd still recommend it to people
I definitely would. I mean, I would recommend it to people that would enjoy it.
and would
Um,
enjoy it.
I can think of a few people in my friend base who like me, also get woozy at the sight of blood, and I don't think it's gonna be their jam, but I can think of other people who would enjoy it. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was enjoyable. Kano definitely put the whole movie on his back.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. For sure.
um, yeah, it was definitely a movie that I would willingly watch again. Which is a big concession considering the fact that I was nervous to sit down for it in the first place.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this movie again. I'm excited to actually get a copy of it so I can watch it whenever I want. I do now want to get you to watch the animated one because it is closer to the Mortal Kombat story. Uh, I think it is similar in gore level, maybe a little bit higher, but it's not. It's still a cartoon, so like yes, it's cartoon people, but there's a difference between that and I mean it's a movie, but people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same for the gore. So you might be able to handle it better. It also instead of Kano, Johnny Cage is the goofball.
Mhm.
Which kind of brings me back to one other thing that people were complaining when people were complaining that how can Cole contest Goro, and it's like everybody look in the '95 movie Johnny Cage takes out Goro. Now, admittedly, he doesn't just man fight him; he kicks him off a cliff and tricks him. But like Johnny Cage thought the whole thing was a joke until about 5 minutes before he fought Goro.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he wasn't even buying it, and he was a movie star as opposed to all these people that I mean, he was a trained martial artist also. Like the whole point of him being there is he was one of the best. But
yeah,
come on, give me a break. Like it's okay. But anyway, any other thoughts, wife, about the movie? I know you mentioned a number of things, and we're kind of repeating ourselves at this point. But any other closing thoughts?
Um, no, I think I would be excited to see a second one. With hopefully it's real life and Ryan Reynolds ends up being Johnny Cage. But
I think that would legit actually be really cool. It was funny because the Twitter exchange, because he put a joke up, photoshopping his head onto Johnny Cage, and then Ed Boon replied to him. He's like, "Hey, Ed Boon, I know people out there are going to, but he's one of the creators of Mortal Kombat." He said, "Hey, we should talk." Now, I don't know how much Ed influences this sort of stuff,
yeah,
but I have a feeling that most people would probably be like movie people. I'm thinking. Like movie executives or whoever makes this happen would probably be okay if Ryan Reynolds said, "Yeah, I want to be on the Mortal Kombat cast."
Well, yeah, because that's instant printing money.
Yeah, it's
if
like
they can
okay,
afford him,
yes,
if they can afford him.
Yeah, I wonder I don't know what the budget is. I don't follow any of that stuff, so I have no idea. But
yeah.
So aside from Kano and Cole, well, let me put it this way: Sub-Zero or Scorpion?
I don't know.
You don't know. You're not going to cop out and say Reptile?
No, I'm not going to cop out and say Reptile because
I'm super excited. I know we mentioned it earlier about Shang Tsung saying death is only a portal, so obviously they could bring any of these people back, and we've repeated. But like Sub-Zero actually has a storyline in Mortal Kombat about him dying and coming back. And I'm super excited to see if they do that.
That would be exciting to say.
Like, it would be cool to have those things. They alluded to Shao Kahn with a bunch of the statues and things. They could bring a lot of characters and do a lot of different things in here. I have a feeling that, obviously, since, and we said this multiple times, everybody's just going to have to accept that it's its own universe. So it's like, yeah, they're going to bring in Noob Saibot. And I'm very curious of whether they'll call him Noob Saibot or just Noob. Whether they bring in Smoke, or are they going to go to Order Realm and Chaos Realm, so they have Havoc and Hotaru, or are they going to bring in the Red Dragon, which is super unlikely? Are they going to bring in, arbitrary character or characters, whatever? I'm very excited to see where this goes. So I'm looking forward to if there's a Mortal Kombat 2, if they rebooted it again in a couple years, because whatever reason, it seems like it's doing very well. But if it didn't and they reboot it again, I'll be just as excited about that.
Yeah.
But overall, I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm anxious to get my hands on it so that I can watch it some more.
And I will watch most of it with you again.
Most of it. But I think that'll do it, wife, unless you had any other thoughts you wanted to add.
No, I thought it was great.
All right. Then we'll close it up there. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.